Today we're continuing our series of Voices of the Empire, and this particular topic is probably one that's going to get me in some hot water, but it's called Does Your Micronation Suck? Now, in this video, I am going to be, as well as the usual Q&A stuff, we're not going to be doing like a target as we've done before, so we're not going to do like a financial target or anything like that nature, or a citizenship target. Today I want to talk primarily about everybody else. I want to get people's get people to comment on the live, to give some details about their respective micronation or nation building project, or however they might define it, and I will pass judgment, and we will we'll see how that goes. If we don't get many people sort of offering up themselves as sacrificial lambs, you know, that's fine. We can still enjoy each other's company. But for the time being, that is what the plan is. I will quickly just rattle through some of the comments because we did get a few just as we were getting set up. Let me just adjust this slightly before we continue. I am very finicky about this sort of thing. I don't like being too low. So I think that's about right. Maybe a smidge more. There we go. Fantastic stuff. Right, so here we go. So Estuo says, let's go. Yes, sir, absolutely. He says, or they say, I don't know definitively if it's man or woman, so I'll say they for the moment. I left this message here for anyone who joins before it starts. Remember to give a like and subscribe if you are not yet. No, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for that little bit of encouragement on your end. That's much appreciated. Galacia says, I got free from a socialist union today. Congratulations. So our old Independence Day, January 28th, is now Founders Day, and Independence Day is now June 5th. Okay, fantastic. Pleased to hear it. New Esperance is here. Good evening, Charlie. How are you? Just FYI, you'll be the first person to know about this, actually. Well, that and everyone else on the channel. But I have today finalized the designs for the new flags. So that will include flag for New Esperance, as well as the new Waywoodian flag, which the people that contributed via our super chats and everything over the last few weeks or last month or so helped to fund. So that's all gone through. I've approved that. So hopefully in the next week or so, we should get the physical flags in hand, which is good. But also I have today, as in literally probably an hour ago, commissioned some new artwork for New Esperance and all the member states and allies of the Empire. Nothing major, it's just a different kind of flag artwork design. So hopefully in the next couple of days I'll have that, and I'm going to try to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the flag waving animation by itself, which I'll send to you so you can use that if you so wish, but also I'm going to do it so the anthem of each respective member state and each respective ally has this flag animation playing as well, just in case people want to use that for whatever reason. Nothing major, but I thought it might be a quite nice, you know, a little something. Right, moving down the list. Oh, the usual jumping. Verdale, good evening, sir, or wherever you may be. Verdale says, I kind of been hoping there would be a video this week. That tends to be what I look forward to most on this channel, though I do like the live streams. When will the next video? Well, you're in luck, because next Friday I won't actually be doing a live, because the Friday after that is going to be the summit. So we're going to have a. I think we've more or less settled. Should I make a video about this? I might do. But I think we've settled on the idea of doing a digital summit on the 26th. So next Friday, actually, I haven't said that. Give me 30 seconds, just want to make sure I haven't got my dates crossed here. Or are we going to do one next Friday? You see, I've got, maybe not. Do I really want to go 2 weeks out doing a live? Because it would be 3 weeks, really. I'll have to think about that. But in answer to your question, we have at least 4 videos coming out which aren't lives. We've got a new ally, which we approved in Imperial Court meeting yesterday, which will, you know, he may join the chat before too long, so we'll see if he comes in. So a new video about a new ally. We have Princess Elena's 6th birthday, and traditionally on her birthday we have a montage of her over the past year, and how she's getting on. So that's another one that I need to make. We have another video which is a little bit more light-hearted, but it's about the Friends of the Empire, of which Veridale is one of. So we got another video of that one. And of course we have another video which is going to be the 7-year anniversary video. So on the 16th of June will be Stomaria's 7-year anniversary, and I always, or I have since the 2nd year anniversary, I think, published a video just going over what we've accomplished, what our setbacks have been, aspirations for the future, and all that jazz. So we've got at least 4, probably 5 videos coming out. Whether or not I do a live before the Imperial Summit, I don't know, because I'm going to have to probably make an Imperial Summit video as well to update people about what the plan is for that. Do I really want to make a whole video about that? Anyway, that's a question for another time. But yeah, so in answer to your question, next video should be 2 or 3 days tops, and then it'll probably be another 2 or 3 days after that, and then yeah, up until we run out of content there. Sabe says, hello Emperor, hello there. Glacier says, you're now my biggest trade partner. I don't recall trading anything with you, so I'd be surprised if that was the case. Unless you're talking to someone else. Terran Empire says, hello Emperor, hello there. New Esperance says, that's great. Glacier says, can we make a tiny colony in Stomaria called New Glacier? No, you cannot. All good, all good. Sabe says, this sounds like a dumb question, but did you... This sounds like a dumb question, but did you buy your chair? Did I buy my chair? Yes. I don't know. I didn't steal it. I didn't borrow it from anyone. It's, yeah, bought and paid for. Archduchy of... Oh, here we go. Is it Palunia? Palunia? If it's not, let me know, but I'm going to say Palunia until otherwise. The ideology of Stomaria. Well, again, I have this question quite a lot, and I don't tend to like pigeonholing Stomaria's ideology, because we have various different beliefs which don't always mesh very neatly into the sort of left-right political spectrum. That said, if I had to put Stomaria anywhere, I would say it was on the more socially conservative, more libertarian side of things, certainly opposed to political extremism in terms of collectivism, in terms of like communism, neo-Nazism, fascism, that sort of thing. But we're more geared towards the state playing as little role in people's lives as possible. I think is the driving force behind Stomaria. So yeah, as I say, quite socially conservative, quite libertarian. Jan says, I support Stomaria, but I don't want to join. I support Stomaria, but I don't want to join it to keep our sovereignty. I'm not familiar with who you are in terms of like being a friend of the Empire or an ally of the Empire, or certainly not a member state of the Empire. But as anyone that has joined the Empire will know, the question of sovereignty, when it comes to domestic affairs, member states have full reign over their own domestic affairs. In fact, who was it? New Esperance, who is a member state of the Empire, actually sent an email just clarifying a few things, and they were talking about wanting to establish their own currency, about wanting to meet up with additional entities in France, nation building projects or micronations, whatever else that might be able to assist them without necessarily building a formal relationship with them, and all the rest. And obviously I just gave the green light to all of that. When it comes to sovereignty, I think the main thing that people take issue with, I suppose, is that they can't have formal affiliations outside of the empire unless we have formal affiliations as a collective, because a common foreign policy is one of the most fundamental characteristics of the empire in terms of what binds us. Because if we all have, say, Stomaria and Wayward and New Esperance and whoever else has different relationships with different external entities, then there isn't really an empire. There isn't really a state as such. And so it's quite important from our perspective to maintain that kind of consistent approach in that as a unit, we stand unified from the point of the outside world, but internally, we're very much doing our own thing. You know, Stomaria does its own thing, Wayward does its own thing, New Esperance does its own thing. But still, I appreciate not, joining the empire is not for everyone. So I very much respect that decision. Save says, that was the best question I got. Well, what about the chair? Well, that was a good effort. Well done. Veradil says, can you elaborate on your live stream topic? Yeah, so I did mention earlier, this is why I'm always a bit hesitant to actually dive fully into the conversation about what this video is about when I first get started, because I do appreciate that not everyone will join the live at that point. But basically, with this particular video, this particular live stream, this is the question. Does your micronation suck? And so what I want to do is I want, for those that want to comment about their respective micronation or nation building project or whatever else, a few details about it, its history or whatever else, and as much as I can. And I will pass judgment on it. I mean, this is kind of like offering the lambs the opportunity to lay down in front of me with a blooded knife. But I promise I'll be gentle. I'll be gentle. Especially to those who I know. Oh, we've had a few. Oh, hang on. So I'm not gonna skip ahead. So let's just have a look. See. So yeah. So the topic of the conversation is basically if people want me to pass judgment on their respective nation building project or micronation or whatever else, happy to do that. But otherwise, I'm happy to have the conversation that we do, because we tend to keep it quite casual on this side. Certainly with our other sort of long form videos, there's normally a bit, obviously a lot more structured, a bit more scripted, but during the lives, I just kind of like to let my hair down a little bit and just have a conversation with you guys about, this, that, and the other. Right. Glacier says, Polonia is... Okay, so yeah, same rules apply. If there's going to be a conversation between different entities within the chat, I'm not going to get involved in that. If it's a question for me in particular or a statement that I need to address, then I'll do that. But I'm not going to get involved in conversations within the chat if it's between different entities. Sabe says, "Can you sing the national anthem of Stomaria?" I will not. I will not sing the national anthem of Stomaria, I'm afraid. Not because I don't know it, obviously, but I don't think I will torture everyone with my horrendous singing voice. And that aside, young Princess Helena is actually trying to sleep. So this is why, if you can't tell already, I'm speaking in slightly hushed tone for the time being, because we have a sleeping little girl, a sleeping little princess, relatively close by, and so belting out the national anthem of Stomaria is definitely not something that's going to be well received by the Empress. Good effort, though. Good attempt. A lot of retracted messages from Lashburnie. I'm not sure why. Again, I can't see retracted messages, and I don't have the means, by the looks of it, to actually unretract them. So I don't know I don't know why YouTube is so aggressive with this. But welcome to the channel, whatever you might have said, Lashburnia. Kingdom of Balrosa said, good evening to you. Sabe says, holy Sealand, it's Lashburnia. Glacier says, Lashburnia does not have a very good army. Well, neither does Stomaria, in fairness, or many other nation-building projects or micronations that I know. So, it is what it is. New Esperance says, I saw the reply to your I saw the reply to to my email. I would like to work together on certain aspects of the kingdom that I mentioned in my email when you available when you are available this summer. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, I mean, you obviously mentioned some of the 3D printing. That's something I would like to touch upon. Back in the day when Seleucia was involved, Queen Neve of Seleucia was involved in like 3D printing. And one of the things I was quite interested in is nobody steal my idea. But one of the things I was quite interested in is potentially setting up like a board game, but for nation building projects and micronations. So it'd be a bit like if anyone's ever played like Settlers of Catan or Risk or that sort of thing, that kind of thing. And I was intending to use like a 3D printer of some sort to create like the figurines for this particular board game. This was something I've been toying with since like the end of 2024 kind of time, but it's just been put to the back of my mind because it's obviously not a very high priority for me to get going. But certainly, I think it might be something that a lot. I say a lot. Some people might be interested in, and I think it might be quite cool to I say cool. It's cool from my perspective to have a board game with all these different entities on there. And no, yeah, I think what was I talking about? 3D printing. Yeah, so maybe we could do something along those lines. Right. Tyrant Empire says, welcome in Lashburnia. Oh, there we go. So Lashburnia has managed to make some comments. Lashburnia says, hello Stomaria, can you share your opinions on Lashburnia? Hello to everyone in the chat. Well, the thing is that I don't actually know much about Lashburnia. I know it's quite an exceedingly popular micronation on YouTube, but I must confess I haven't watched virtually any of your content, so I couldn't pass too much in the way of judgment. But perhaps you could illuminate us. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about Lashburnia yourself, about why you started it, about where it's come from, when it was founded, what it stands for, what you're looking to achieve, what you have accomplished. From what little I know, you've certainly built up a large support base, but I don't know about your territorial claims. I don't know what your monetary system is like. I don't know what your government system is like. I don't know who else is involved in Lashburnia. I don't know what kind of formal affiliations you have with others or whatever else. I just know that you're popular on YouTube. So, point in your favor, absolutely. But I need a bit more meat to the bones, as it were. New Esperance says, "New Lashburnia is not sucked to me." Yeah, I mean, don't worry too much about the title of the video. It's deliberately provocative, but as people in the live stream will know, I'm typically quite easygoing with this sort of thing when it's when it's in a more casual setting. So we will be quite forgiving. I won't be too harsh to those that want to offer themselves as a sacrifice. Helena says, have you heard of the Apollonians? I heard they were trying to build a micronation. Apollonians. For some reason, Apollonian. For some reason, that kind of reminds me of somewhere in Greece. Or maybe it was something in antiquity. Apollonian just has the name feels familiar to me for some reason, and I can't put a finger on it. But I'm assuming that's not what it is. I don't know who the Apollonians are, but maybe you could illuminate us as to what they are and what they're doing. Veridale says, what are your thoughts on Veridale? Any feedback? Well, first and foremost, Veridale I am more familiar with than most. It is a friend of the Empire and has taken a great deal of inspiration from Stomaria, I think it's fair to say. And with that in mind, I have seen a lot of your updates, your videos. Obviously, you're quite young yourself, but you have taken practical and pragmatic steps in promoting Veridale. You have, as far as I can tell, engaged in the nation building experience with some level of decorum, and that's a rarity these days. So, overall, I think Veridale is a very promising nation building project. Overall, I think Veridale is going to prove its worth in the months and years ahead. And I look forward to, at some point, getting Varadale more heavily involved within Stomaria, either as an external partner, as an external ally, and then hopefully one day as a member state of the Empire. Now, obviously, the reason for those that might be watching and not understand why they're not already is because Stomaria has an age limit when it comes to those that want to formally affiliate with Stomaria. So we insist that the founder, the highest authority of that respective micronation or nation building project, or however they define themselves, is over the age of 18. For obvious reasons, I'm not particularly keen on building formal affiliations with minors. Now, it's obviously a lot easier if there are micronationalists out there or nation builders out there which are already minors themselves and they can build relationships with other minors. That's obviously a little bit more acceptable. But from my perspective, hopefully for obvious reasons, I'm not interested in building a network with all of these different entities if they're not led by legal adults. So yeah, that's the reason Varadale isn't yet formally affiliated with Stomaria, aside from being a friend of the Empire. But I'm aware that they've taken a lot of inspiration from Stomaria. I'm aware that they have done a lot already in the great scheme of things. And yeah, I would give it a solid rating, absolutely. Keep on at it. And above all, keep active, because that will be the main thing with all these nation building projects or micronations, or however you might define them. A consistent stream of activity is absolutely key, because stagnation is death. It's just where that is the biggest killer, I think, of micronations, is where the founder or the highest authority simply lose enthusiasm, and then a week becomes a month, and a month becomes a year, and before you know it, they forget they ever had something that they were working on. So keep on at it is what I would say. Sabe says, do you have a fridge? You didn't even have the common courtesy of putting a question mark on the end of such a question. But yes, in answer to your quote unquote question, we do have a fridge. In fact, we've got one better. We've got a fridge freezer. So, But thank you for the question, Saber. Very much appreciate it. Ape says hello. Hello there. Good to see you. I believe you were in the last live stream. Valrosa says, I think a board game would be pretty cool. I don't disagree. I've thought it's been a good idea for a very long time. But as I say, it's just not something that's been like. If anyone ever has to had a glance at my to-do list, not just for Stomaria, but just generally speaking, it grows with each day. I can't do enough jobs to whittle it down. It only grows longer. And sadly, the board game idea as a note in my to-do list sort of gradually fallen further down the list. So yeah, it is on my list of things, but yeah, nobody steal that idea. If they do, I'll know where they got it from. New Esperance says, it will be a pleasure to help on this 3D project. I have a French diploma, a professional bachelorette in 3D modeling and prototyping, which I obtained with honours. Well, I didn't even know that was a thing, to be honest, but that's fantastic to know. So yeah, I definitely think that will be something that we can discuss. Yeah, I think there's a good deal of opportunity there. So yeah, we'll definitely discuss that. Newest one says, and I'd like to start working with 3D printing, so this would be a great opportunity. So do you have the 3D printer, or is this something that you would have to do through like a third party? Just out of curiosity. It's not the end of the world either way. I'm just curious if you have the facilities or the equipment to do that sort of thing right off the bat. Okay, I think we're doing okay. I think we're keeping track. Helena says, the Apollonians are a group of pagans who want to build a Greek empire in Greece, Italy, and the Middle East. Oh, okay, so I probably was, yeah, I probably was not far off. Scott Roth says Apollonia translates to of Apollo, I believe. Okay, well that makes sense. See, this is, I'm sure Apollonians, I'm gonna say that I heard the phrase, or as soon as I said it, I thought of the movie Troy. I don't know if anyone. I think it was probably like early 2000s, 2004 maybe. But if anyone's ever seen like Troy, not like the Odysseus thing that's coming out shortly, but Troy. I'm pretty sure that someone shouted Apollonians during like one of the battles or something. I think that's why I thought about it. I should go and watch Troy again. That was a good movie actually. Don't get enough historical movies these days. At least not ones which aren't have a lot of artistic license attributed to them, shall we say. Terrain Empire says, if I email you a link to my nation's website, you'll check it out on the stream and give feedback. Potentially. This is one of the reasons I'm a little bit hesitant to do it, because ideally I would go onto each of like the YouTube channels and the websites and all the rest of it. But people will just be literally on the live stream watching me look at a website, which probably wouldn't be very entertaining. So if possible, do like just give me snippets of information in the live stream chat if possible. I think that will be more hopefully a bit more engaging for people that are actually watching. But if you do send a link, I can potentially have a quick look at it. But I'm not going to like read essays or whatever, because I've got a live stream to get back to, obviously. So many retracted messages. Veridel says, how should I keep track of citizens since I'm 15? I don't want to charge money, so I was wondering if you had any ideas for a nation at my scale. I mean, to be honest, when Stomaria was first founded, I mean, we didn't have citizens for the first year of our existence anyway, but when we did start recruiting, we didn't really have like a formal process at all, in the sense that to become a citizen of Stomaria, you had a one-to-one interview with me personally, and if I liked you, then I said you were now a citizen of Stomaria. There wasn't a certificate, you didn't get any special, like, I don't know, identification as to identify you as a citizen as such. So I think when you first get started, I think just building up the community with people that you know is a fine way to go about it. I mean, even doing the system, even having the system that we utilized before we transitioned to back to Patreon, which is what we use now. We had a form that potential applicants could fill in if they wanted to become a citizen. The problem with both of these sort of systems, really, if you're not doing a face-to-face interview, and you're going to just sort of take people's word for how old they are or where they live or whatever else, you do have to put a lot of trust so that you are talking to someone that is genuine and someone that is as they say they are. So there is a lot of risk there. So if you want to go like through a third party, which is one of the reasons that we use Patreon for citizenship, it takes a little bit of the risk out of it. But I appreciate that there is a reason as to why you wouldn't necessarily want to go down that route right away. Save says, do you get out of the way? Do you get out of the way to get wood? Get it? Kind of. I don't think I delivered it very well, but good effort. Hey, Republic of Sarah says, you said 6th. Did I say the 6th? What, in the post? As to when the... Oh, I might have done. Let's have a look. You've got me second guessing myself now. Let us have a quick gander. Oh, bugger, I did say the 6th, didn't I? Well, that's going to irritate me for the rest of the time. Fantastic. Yeah, ignore me. Typically, unless I say otherwise, I did say otherwise. But I'm going to try to do live streams on Friday evenings, if I can. I was just saying earlier in the stream, I'm probably going to give 1 or 2 of next Fridays a miss, because I've got 4 or 5 videos, like long form videos that I need to make and release to the wider world, which covers a few things. So there might be a slight delay with the lives, and because I'm probably going to do a live stream for the Imperial Summit, so I mean, I spoke to King Daniel the Wayward about it, and I think a potential plan of action at the moment is we're going to go down to the woodland on the Friday. We're going to set things up. It'll just be probably just him and me for the day. And we're going to set it up, make it nice. We're going to do a live stream at the land, and then we're just going to sort of reminisce about Wayward's history, Stomaria's history, the history of the Empire, about where we have come from, how much we've accomplished, where we're going in the future, and have something a bit similar to this, I suppose, where we can just kind of engage with our wider following, because obviously the Imperial Summit is quite exclusive in the sense that it relies on people actually physically being there to experience it. So this year, we are thinking, for various reasons, that maybe we will just have the Imperial Summit as a digital affair for 2026 and see how we go with that. It might fail completely. It might fail completely and utterly. But it is something that we want to give a go of. So, yes, we might not be doing a live in the next week or two, just to build up the suspense for that. New Esperance says, no, I don't have the equipment, but I'm on good terms with my former teacher who offered to support my projects and printing needs at my old high school. Fantastic. And if I save up a little and get some help from people around me, I can easily buy a first user-friendly model. Okay, fantastic. Well, obviously don't break the bank or anything, and certainly don't do it just purely for us. I would hate for you to go down that route, but if it's something you're going to do anyway, brilliant. Sorry, I just got a quick email. I assume that is interesting. The link to your website doesn't appear to work. And that's from... Who is that from? Did it say a name? It's got your name, but not your nation building project's name. Sorry guys, just give me a second. Right. Curtis says, hi, I'm wondering if we could have a meeting in a video call. I have no idea who you are, so I'm a little bit busy at the moment, but depending on what you want to talk about, I'm typically happy to have video calls with those that want to align with Stomaria in some way. In fact, it's a requirement for allies and member states of the Empire, but aside from that, it's probably not necessary. Save says, the joke means wayward. Yeah, I get it, but, you know, there's a joke and then there's a joke, you know? Good effort, though. Coach says, I built a nation. Fantastic. Sarah says, almost missed it. Yeah, that's my bad. That's on me. Yeah, I can't even say unless I say otherwise it'll be on a Friday, because I did say otherwise. So, yeah, that's just me having a moment. Tehran Empire says, I emailed it. I didn't know how to explain it in chat. Yeah, your link doesn't appear to work. Sarah says, does Stomaria have an army? No, we don't. I mean, we have a kind of a theoretical body called the Imperial Guard, but it's not an army. It's more of a policing, security, stewarding body that's intended to be used for like ceremonial activities and public events. But in terms of like an army, no. Certainly not something that we've needed. Curtis says, can we chat? Can I join the podcast? No, I have no idea who you are. So you're here. Let me join the stream. Afraid not. You see, one of the biggest red flags for me are people that feel so entitled that they think they can just demand things like this. It's just like, I want to talk to you now. Let me join your live stream now. I want to talk now. It's very unattractive and very unappealing for me personally. Glacier says, is there a Sumerian language? No, I mean, I have talked about this before in terms of people wanting to create their own languages and their own calendars and things like that. Basically, anything to do with the nation building experience, that's going to hamper progress. I appreciate it might develop some sort of like culture or identifier or something to make you more distinct. But anything that's going to hamper your ability to actually operate, like creating your own language that realistically only you are going to understand, it's just not going to benefit anyone really. I mean, one of the things that we insist upon when nations and communities become affiliated with Stomaria as member states is that they have a common language, and that common language is English. Obviously, you can speak as many languages as you want outside of that. But being able to communicate with each other is absolutely essential in order to build a cohesive society, and that's what we're ultimately striving to do. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a sip of my honey water. Turan says, try adding to the end. See, I'm not convinced it's going to do it. I'll tell you what, I'm going to give it a quick go. I'm going to have a look at, see if I can just Google Terran Empire and see if anything comes up. Doesn't look encouraging. Apparently Terran Empire is like a Star Trek thing, apparently. Yeah, so I'll never find it because it's just going to come up with Star Trek stuff. Sarah says, is Transnistria a micronation? It's a very interesting question. I would say no in the conventional sense, because even though it is an entity that isn't recognized, as far as I'm aware, by anybody, it still functions like a state on some level, and if not a state, then has some of the characteristics of a state, if that makes sense. Obviously it's an unrecognized breakaway state from Moldova, and is considered, I think, by the Council of Europe to be under Russian military occupation, and Transnistria has repeatedly requested that Russia annex it. And I do recall that one of the stories during the Ukrainian the Ukrainian-Russian war is that I remember a colonel or a general from Russia said that one of their early ambitions was to create a land corridor to Transnistria, potentially for that purpose. So yeah, it's not what I would class as a micronation. I certainly wouldn't put it in the same category as most self-defined micronations as you would know them today. So yeah, I don't view it that way, I don't think. Save says, will you visit Sealand? I think visiting Sealand, from what I understand, is actually quite difficult. I don't think they let many visitors join, and I certainly doubt that they would let someone like me there, certainly if they knew who I was, my profile, and all the rest of it. So I would like to, at some point, just to say I've been there as much as anything, but it would be interesting to see their operations in the flesh, as it were. But in terms of how that's going to practically play out, I just don't think that's going to happen. Just speaking honestly. Verdale says, you once said, I will do the summit no matter what, even if it is just me. I think you should try to invite more people than just you and the King of Wayward, just to at least make it more real. Yeah, well, the thing is, we will, when it comes to the Imperial Summit, it is going to happen one way or the other. It just depends on how we go about it, because ultimately it's gotten to the point where we had people potentially coming from different parts of the world to the point where they were going to fly in, and we just weren't going to be in a position to deliver the goods. In the sense that a lot of our more regular attendees, the people that are a lot more local to us, for various different reasons, had to drop out. And I would feel immensely guilty if people would travel or make the effort to go all the way to the Imperial Summit for there only to be a small handful of people there. Because, as you say, it is better to have more people there, absolutely. And there probably will be some people there because some people do want to come down to the land anyway. But in terms of like organizing like massive feasts or competitions and having speeches and things like that, this year I think we're just gonna do something a bit more humble, but at the same time include more people by having having it live stream, so we get more and more people involved in that way. Maybe we'll give like a tour of the land or something while we're there. I don't know. I mean, I'm going down to the land on Monday to discuss it in a bit more detail with King Daniel. We did briefly mention it yesterday evening in the Imperial Court meeting that we had, where we got a new ally of the Empire confirmed, which will be announced in a couple of days. But yeah, when I go down there on Monday, I'll probably have a conversation with him and just sort of iron out the details. And yeah, we'll see how we go. We'll see how we go. Sarah says, "Oh, so you're in Transnistria, and so you're in Transnistria are not on the same level. Are you trying to say Stomaria and Transnistria are not on the same level? Because if that's the case, I'd certainly say that. I mean, yeah, Transnistria is far and away more. I mean, for all its faults, obviously, it's a lot more closer to being a state than Stomaria is at this time. I don't think there's any real argument to the contrary. If that's what you're trying to ask, yes, that would be the question answer to that question. Save says, "Why did you choose the color blue for Stomaria's flag? Have you not already asked this before? I don't know if it was you that's asked it, but I'm relatively certain it was. But yeah, the color blue for Stomaria symbolizes strength, and has always been my favorite color. So sort of was an obvious choice, and it's kind of like, it is quite a regal, quite an elegant color as well. And you'll see some similarity, I think, between Stomaria's flag and Wayward's new flag, which will be unveiled before too long at some point this month. And again, they both just have that kind of regal feel to it, a nice dark regal color. So look forward to unveiling all that. Curtis is, I'm sure we'll talk about AI for languages, I guess. Yeah. Oh, sorry. It's got I assume an email from Tehran. No, I'm afraid it just keeps taking me to a login. It says, "Welcome to Eterna Imperium." I thought you were Tehran. Yeah, I'm not logging into anything. If that's the game plan. The People's Republic of Devon. Can already tell where this is going. Long live Devon. Okay. It's a weird thing to jump into a chat and just say, "Long live myself." A very weird thing to say. Curtis is talking about languages. It's fine. Empire of Imperium. Has Stomaria ever been in a true war, not just a small conflict with another micronation? We've never been in a war or a conflict of any kind with any micronation, nation building project or otherwise. We have had people come onto the land and destroy our property before, and we dealt with that, as you might expect, by contacting the local authorities. But no, we've not been any altercations of that sort. Right. Yeah, I don't typically ban. Yeah, Cyrus is saying, can I ban the communist? I mean, I don't typically ban people just because of X, Y, and Z. If they want to, typically, well, if they're communists, probably make an idiot out of themselves, and I'm happy for them to do so. Then it doesn't necessarily mean I need to engage with them. If they disrupt the chat too much, then I will obviously ban them to maintain the experience for everyone else. But yeah, we'll leave it be for the moment. Right, I think for the first time in a long time, we have actually caught up with the chat, which is normally quite a rarity. Right, fantastic. Okay, good. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to take the opportunity to have a look at. Would I be able to do it? And because Lashburnia asked me to review their Micronation, and I don't, or I can't rather, watch their content while I have my live, obviously. So just going to have a quick glance at their videos. I'm just going to have a look, see what they're about, because I don't actually know anything about Lashburnia. Right. Looks okay. Isn't it? Right off the bat, the first video, presumably. And this is the thing. I'm just gonna have to guess what these videos are about based on what I can see because I'm not watching them. But by the looks of it, they've claimed a territory somewhere. I'm guessing potentially somewhere in Europe because he's recently said that he's traveling to Europe. He's got lots of flags. Looks like he sets up some embassies. I mean, he's got his bedroom. Presumably, maybe that's where it's based. I don't know. But his bedroom is full of Lashburnian merchandise, like bed covers and flags and all the rest. So, you know, he's going for it. Raising a flag in his garden. Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything here. I mean, I'd have to watch the content, obviously, but I'm not seeing anything here that's majorly out there. It looks a lot more advanced than a lot of self-defined micronations, and kudos to him. He's making videos, he's putting himself out there, he's putting his face out there, and that's something that I do respect quite a lot, is nation builders and micronationalists or whatever else that actually put a face to a name, because I think it does take a degree of courage, frankly, to put yourself out there like that. Because a lot of these entities that float around on the internet these days, and for a long time I would imagine before that, created by people who are just completely anonymous, and so there's no risk as such. They can say and do more or less whatever they want without repercussion. Whereas for me personally, it's not just a reputational thing. My life could be affected in ways positively or negatively by saying and doing certain things. So I always have to be very conscious of that sort of thing. And more, as I say, more power to Lashburnia for putting his face up there. It looks like he's really going for it. So as I say, it doesn't look like it's majorly different from a lot of the slightly more developed micronations out there. Certainly head and shoulders, by all accounts, from the usual slop that you see. But I'd have to watch some of this content to actually get a full, solid understanding of what Lashburnia is all about. He has some very big hair. I don't know if that's just him generate. Yeah, I don't know. Some very big fluffy hair. That's not really a point in any direction, but just an observation. Right. Sarah says, can you get... Oh, retracted. I did see it, but then it was retracted. It says something along the lines of, can you get a permit for a firearm in the UK? And the answer is yes, but you have to have a justification for it. Like, you can't just buy a shotgun or a, a high-powered bolt-action rifle or whatever else, unless you're going to be specifically doing it for like hunting or gamekeeping or something like that. It's very. I don't want to say it's rare to get firearms in the UK because you can get them, but there are a lot more hurdles to jump through to get them, rightly or wrongly. Curtis says, I've been in war with Canada for 6 years. Okay. They hit my descendants with BC Mental Health Act, just like how they hit my guy in Vancouver who was outspoken around Chinese interference. Yeah, okay. It's not that I don't believe your plight as such, but it's just that's not really anything to do with our version of a nation building experience. If that is something that you're going through, more power to you. But this is why I don't just have random calls with random people, because I can already tell that this would not be a good idea having this conversation. Mason says, hi Andrew, first Voices of the Empire I have caught live. Love what you are doing with your nation building project. I hope Stomaria lives on for as long as possible. Well, thank you very much, Mason. I appreciate that. Yeah, we've been coming up 7 years now. Obviously, if you look back on some of my first content, much as I do on occasion, and cringe at the kind of the quality of the content, and in another 7 years, I'll look back on this and I'll think, what the hell was I doing? What the hell was I saying? I don't doubt for that for the minute, but at the time, I thought it was, this is really good stuff. But yeah, we've been going for 7 years now. We've been posting relatively regularly for 7 years straight, a couple of times a week, virtually without fail. So we have must well over 1,000 videos and posts and images and updates about our development, about our progress, and all the rest. So it's been a long journey, and it's had its trials and tribulations, but hopefully it'll be something that I am able to pass on when I'm old and grey, or perhaps not so much. We'll see what fate has in store. But yeah, this is a generational nation building project. So my keen ambition is to build up Stomaria to the point where a future generation of Stomarians can take over from things. And that's one of the main reasons that we consider family to be so important. Because I don't want Stomaria to be born and then die with me. I want it to carry on after me, so that other people can continue to promote the messages that we think are important. It doesn't matter if it's sound money or the concept of natural rights or the promotion of soul rejuvenation, or providing more for yourself and being self-reliant, increasing the amount of self-determination you have for yourself and your family and your community. It's just about freedom. It's about living the life that you want to live, I think, fundamentally, and not being so reliant on others around you, and being able to do more for yourself. I think this is all part and parcel of the nation building experience from our perspective, and hopefully it outlasts me, but we shall see. G4 says, are you the Emperor of Stomaria? I most certainly am. Sarah says, I've already dumped around 4K into it, so I'm just waiting for it to get there. Sorry, dump 4K into what? I don't see any previous message to suggest that. I wouldn't necessarily know what you're talking about. Bit of clarity. Curtis says, do a one-on-one video call, nation to nation, Kingdom of Asgardia. I don't really see the need to, but thank you for the offer. Veridale says, can member states have business partners, like if Wayward, for example, wanted to buy land and trade with business? Yes, yeah, so, I mean, the running joke in Stomaria and Wayward, certainly between me and Daniel, is that our biggest trade partner is Amazon because we use them to buy so much of our like tools and equipment and seeds and all the rest of it. So I'm not going to say to Danny or Wayward or anyone within Wayward that you can't do business with certain entities because they're not formally affiliated with Stomaria. It has more to do with other communities and other nation building projects, because ultimately these sorts of entities are going to be treated slightly differently in that they are promoting particular ideologies, presumably are trying to establish themselves as their own de facto independent entities of some kind. It's not always the case, obviously, but we would treat them differently than we would just a casual business, for obvious reasons. Right. Sorry guys, just give me 30 seconds. We're a bit slow on the live stream tonight, I'm not sure why. Right, Veritel says this chat, yeah. It's a little bit quiet, that's what I'm saying. It's normally I'm like 40 minutes behind. But now I'm sort of catching up a little bit too quickly. So I sort of I had to keep thinking of things to talk about. What can we talk about? There we go. So the Stamarian honey. I'm going to do some promo. This here is Stamarian honey. Look at that. 8 ounces of glory. Pure liquid gold. We actually thinking about it, King Daniel of Wayward took about 20 jars of this honey to sell at a campsite local to where the woodland is. Apparently, 1 or 2 have already sold, which is good. So we're branching out and doing the business ventures. And when I go down to the land on Monday, I'm going to be taking a few more jars down to put on our honesty stall out there. And in addition to that, we have you might, for those who have been following us, you might have seen a photo of like a mountain of horsemen, which I still haven't done anything with. So I think on Monday, me and Danny are going to be shifting that to help with some of the composting process, but also to do some of the raised beds that we have. And there's a pond and a herb garden that needs the horse manure packed around it as well. But in addition to that, there's going to be in the camping area, for those again familiar with the area, that camping pitch area we're going to be extending slightly. So we're going to be doing more with that to potentially allow for like 2 pitches for 2 decent size kind of like tents or bell tents, because that is something that has been on the agenda for a very, very long time, and we're kind of the window of opportunity is closing really to really promote the area as a quote unquote tourist destination, to as much as anything generate revenue for the empire, but also to promote an alternative industry which isn't to do with forestry or apiculture or agriculture or animal husbandry or renewable energy or anything like that. So it'll be something new and something I'm quite keen to promote more of, because Stomaria's industries ultimately are only going to be as varied as I decide to make them as things stand. I am hoping that in the fullness of time that the other provinces of the empire, the other territories of the empire, are going to be able to develop to the point where we can encourage more tourism to those areas, or they can start producing goods that we can't produce at the land. When it comes to agricultural produce, it's a little bit more complicated because our territories are scattered across the world. We've got some we've got one in Portugal, in the United States, and we've got them in the British Isles. And transporting agricultural produce between all these different entities is a bit more of a challenge, for obvious reasons. But we'll hopefully get around that at some point, because developing all of the lands of the empire to some extent and taking full advantage of the space that we do have is something I'm very keen to promote. And I have a great deal of confidence that Lord Christensen of Stomaria in Wyoming, governor of Augusta, and Lord Seraphim of Stomaria, who is in southern Portugal, as the governor of Porto Lagoa, I'm quietly confident in sort of this year and next that we will have something to report on. I have had conversations with both of them, and for different reasons, there has been delays in getting the ball rolling, really. But still, we have the land, we have the territory, it's there, it's ready to go. It's just a case of really pulling the trigger and going for it. But I know more than most that it's not always as easy as all that. Sometimes it does just take a long time to get the ball rolling. Neosporan says, I'm going to buy a jar of it one day to give to my grandfather, who holds the title of Emperor within the royal family, a title reserved for the parents and grandparents of the king/queen. Well, that's good. I mean, when it came to my late mother and my father, we didn't bestow titles on them. A kind of, because we figured it had to start somewhere, so this is why we started with myself and Samantha, my wife, as the Emperor and Empress of Stomaria, and then sort of go, sideways and down from that point, because it's got to start somewhere, I guess. But I suppose, Charlie, it sort of begs the question: will you eventually then become the? Did you say Emperor? Yeah. Would you eventually become the Emperor of New Esperance, just out of curiosity, or is that going to be like the sort of? Oh no, you said reserved for the Well, yeah, okay. Reserved for the parents and grandparents of the king/queen. So I guess, unless you abdicate and step down, that you would never yourself be the Emperor of New Esperance. That's how I'm reading it. But let me know either way. Mason Hill says, what are your wants or needs for industries within the Empire? Do you have any skill sets you are hoping to see from future or current citizens? Well, that's a very good question. And the simple answer is that we want to develop and expand Stomarian industry in whichever way we are able to, at any point that we are able to. So the reason that we have the industries that we do is because those are the industries that we are able to actually practice and engage with on the land, on the territory that we have. So we have a few chickens there, we have some rhubarb there, we have obviously the split logs that we season, we have the renewable energy, we have the tourism, which we have started in some form or another last year, and hopefully going to maximize it a little bit more this year. But that's only because those are only the things that we can realistically do at this time. We are trying to develop more, but at the same time, it is a woodland plot and quite limited as to what we can do. But yes, when it comes to particular citizens having various skill sets, the long and the short of it is we can't really pick and choose who joins Stomaria, who becomes affiliates of Stomaria. If there are people out there that join Stomaria and want to play an active role and have a particular skill set, like we were saying earlier in this live stream, King Charlie of New Esperance, who is also a Stomarian citizen, and New Esperance is a member state of the Empire, he was talking about his qualifications and his skills with 3D printing, which we are going to be hopefully taking full advantage of. So there's a good example of an opportunity, and now we're going to try to run with it. So as long as the opportunity is presented to us, and we have the people around us which have those skill sets or have those interests, we will run with it. Like another example, I suppose, Lord Christensen of Stomaria, previously Consul David of Vesta, before Vesta was merged in Stomaria, he had an interest in like metal smelting, and so he sent us a load of copper bars which he had created himself, and he's stamped them. I still have them here in the cupboard, and we exchanged those with silver Sumerian state coins. Or if you go look in the Isle of the Thua, whether or not they exist now, I don't know. The Isle of the Thua or Kingdom of the Thua, they produce their own wine, and so we did trade wine with them. Or the Kingdom of Dunland, I think it was the Kingdom of Dunland. They weren't associated or affiliated with Stomaria formally, but we did have a brief exchange in which they created their own jams, and so we acquired those jams. And it's just this kind of thing that we try to encourage people to make use of as many of the skills or interests that they have. And this is one of the reasons that we have the Stata, because we like to think that it is a a medium exchange that people will actually be interested in acquiring because it is just genuine silver, it's pure silver. And so from our various earliest days, we've kind of positioned Stomaria as almost a conduit of trade between all of our different partners. By utilizing Stomarian's data, we should hopefully encourage people to make more jams, or make more wines, or make more ingots, and then engage in trade and exchange with one another. That was the sort of game plan. But over time, Stomaria has actually become, in its own right, probably the dominant producer of goods, in the sense that we produce pine logs. We've, chopped them up. We've seasoned them. We've bagged them. We've tagged them. We've weighed them. With the rhubarb, we are the heart of the empire when it comes to the agricultural industry side of things. No one else produces, as far as I know, much of anything outside of our own borders, outside of Southwood. When it comes to the honey, I mean, we have, I don't know how many jars we have left now, probably a little over 100 jars still. But we, the producers of the only honey in the empire, again, as far as I'm aware. And hopefully that will change. Hopefully we encourage more people to do this sort of thing, because ultimately that's what we want to do. We want more individuals, more people to engage in activities which we think is slowly becoming kind of like a lost knowledge almost. And one of the big issues that I have with the way the world is and the way the world is going is that for tens of thousands of years, we as human beings knew how to survive. We knew how to hunt, to grow food, to build things. And over time, as technology has improved and done more of the work that we would do in the past, be it agricultural or industry, or even if you look at like AI and the way that's going, more and more people are going to lose the ability or lose the interest, or certainly have a reduced interest or a reduced ability to do things that we've been doing for so long. How many people now know how to grow food? I mean, it just seems like an odd thing to say, but they might give it a go. I mean, I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else in this regard, because I'd never grown anything before I bought Southwood, not really. So it's been a learning curve for me as well. But so few people understand, if they're going to plant certain fruits or vegetables or herbs or whatever else, what kind of sunlight does it need? What kind of soil quality does it need? What kind of pH levels of the soil is best for that particular plant? Is it best grown in full sun or in partial shade? Is it best grown in and amongst other plants? Does it need to be isolated from other plants because the way it spreads or whatever else? These sorts of questions, a lot of people just won't know the answer to. And as I say, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal and I'm saying I know everything about this sort of thing either. But I am trying to take an active interest in this sort of thing, because I do worry that we risk losing a lot of what makes us human at the end of the day. And the idea that we are going to lose this connection to everything around us and just survive almost like in a bubble. When that bubble bursts, the people are going to get a very rude awakening. And I think there's a particular problem for people in the Western world as much as anything. Yeah, we'll... yeah, as I say, in answer to your question, if citizens have an interest or a skill set, we will try to make use of it. And we always encourage all citizens to make use of their own skill sets. It all feeds into the narrative which I was just talking about. Sarah says, I want to have one of those military parades. Yeah, I mean, I get the enthusiasm, especially if you're a young man, I guess, as to why you might want a military parade. But for a nation-building project, you're going to have small handfuls of people in any one place at any one time, at best. And of those people, very few will be of military age or capable of engaging in kind of military activities, for lack of a better term, be it marching or target practice or whatever else. And then obviously there's the cost associated with that. If you're going to fully equip them, the people involved or whatever else, it's an expense that can be put towards, I suspect, better things in the nation building experience, especially when you get going. honestly, one of my regrets when I got the ball rolling was spending as much as I did on the development of the equipment and the attire of the early Imperial Guard, not least because we had to keep chopping and changing it as the situation demanded, but also because it's kind of just stuff that's sat around for the most part. It doesn't actually benefit Stomaria in any real way. I mean, it's nice to have the kind of the aesthetics. It makes it look more genuine, more real, more authentic. But I would think, I would imagine that your financial resources are better spent elsewhere in developing your project, be it putting aside to acquire land or developing that land in particular, or engaging in some kind of business enterprise or whatever else. There are lots of things you could do aside from, you know, equipping a bunch of people to march around your garden or whatever else. Newsprint says, if I give the throne to my first child, then yes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you sort of abdicate, then that's a different story. But not at the moment because I love my job. That's good to know. I mean, you're quite new to the job as well, so I would hope that you hold fire for a while. Whoop. JD says, hey Andy, just got my forklift certification. Big things are coming for Tresca. I'm not familiar with Tresca, I don't think, but I'm glad that you got your forklift certification. That's good to hear, and hopefully that will assist you in whatever way you deem necessary for Tresca, if that is how you pronounce it. Newest Front says, would you like me to send a message for the anniversary of the Empire or the Imperial Summit? That's an interesting question, because we've never actually... Normally it's just me giving some spiel. I tell you what, if you want to prepare something maybe for the Imperial Summit, maybe we could do something like that. I'm not sure if we did a live how that would work necessarily. I'd have to see how we could work that in. I'll have to think about that. But yeah, because obviously me and Daniel will likely be at the land anyway. It would be nice, since you won't be there, to have a representation from New Esperance. I do intend to fly the flag of New Esperance during the Imperial Summit. But that aside, yeah, maybe we'll talk about it. So remind me, send me a message, and I'll have a think about it as to how that might look. Save says it's almost night in Stomaria. Yeah, it was currently 9:45, so yeah, I would say so. Curtis says, I will pay you 1,000 for a meeting. It doesn't make any difference to me. I can't be bought. If I don't want to have a meeting with you, and I don't think I do based on what I've seen, then 1,000 whatever is not going to dissuade me. Sav says, it's certainly nighttime in Stomaria already, probably operates in the same time zone as the UK. Also, greetings to Stomaria from the UK. Well, that's because we are in the UK. We're in a Fleet in Hampshire specifically. So if you are from the UK, it's good to see a fellow Brit, as it were. But yeah, the Southwood, which is a Stumerian province, is based in Bransgore in the New Forest in Hampshire, and I myself reside in Fleet in Hampshire, which is the other side of Hampshire, annoyingly. But yeah, it's all very Hampshire based, all very southern, southeast England based. Sarah says, oh no, I already ordered that online, just need to wait for it to get here. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Are you talking about like equipment for your army? But well, good luck with whatever, I suppose. Oh, Free Texas, hello there. Yeah, I remember you. You made a contribution in the last stream. Yes, thank you for that. Again, good to see you again. Hope all is well on your end. Free Texas says, I have a question. I would really like your advice. My Micronation is based off an alt history series, and we promote Texan culture and patriotism for the Texan nation. And we try to act as a state. For the Texans who are at current don't really have a government of their own, the state of Texas is a joke, by the way. Our community is about self-betterment and supporting Texas, donating blood, community service, and that. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. So yeah, that's all fine and good. So in terms of advice, I'm not sure what advice I could potentially give you. The Stomaria isn't looking to establish itself as a continuation of Hampshire or Wessex or England or any other particular region. We are creating our own distinct entity, which does have citizens all across the world, has provinces across the world, and so when it comes to projects that are based in particular locations which consider themselves to be a continuation of a culture or an identity within that region, I don't have an issue with it. I mean, to each their own, all that jazz, but it's not really what we're doing. We're trying to create something new in as much as we can, which is why we are quite, a lot of our aesthetics and all the rest of it is quite distinct from Britain in particular, but also every other nation in the world. We have tried to make ourselves. Sorry, Charlie from New Esperance has just dropped a message because I asked him to remind me to make mention of the summit, the video call for the summit. In terms of advice, I'm happy to give it, but you'd have to illuminate the actual query as to how I might be able to assist you. Kingdom of Oritania says, hello all, hello there. Benevolent Autocracy says, hello, greetings. Veradale says, Hampshire or New Hampshire, what do you prefer? Well, Hampshire is the OG, obviously. We're, New Hampshire is just much is the same for a lot of the United States. It's just New York or New Hampshire or New England. I mean, it's not exactly very original, just putting that out there. I've never actually been to New Hampshire, so I can't pass comment on like the characteristics of the land or anything like that, or the people, or the culture, or the community. But I like living in southeast England. I like living in Hampshire. It's a good location to be. It's close enough to London for the times that I do have to go into London that it's not too much of an issue getting there, but also it's far enough away where I can comfortably keep my distance from the wider world, because I'm not a fan of cities, even large towns. I don't typically like. I like Fleet because it's kind of like a small market town sort of vibe, but my ideal is just like totally rural. That's my preference. Suburban is fine. Where we are is fine. But if I had all the money and the choice in the world, it would definitely be rural. Tall walls, tall hedges, very few neighbours. Just surrounded by people that I love and want to spend time with, friends and family and all the rest. So what were we talking about? Yeah, Hampshire. I like living in Hampshire. It's a good place to be. I'm actually West Berkshire, born and bred, but yeah, I've lived in Fleet, Hampshire for don't know now. I suppose technically 2017, like 8-9 years, give or take. So I've lived here a long time. New Texas says, I forgot to ask the question. No worries, you ask away. Sarah says, hey, it's not original, you all named it. I suppose that's true. I can't say the Americans named it. We named it after all. But now that the filthy rebels have America now, so now now it's your problem. Now it's something that we can mock you for. So you guys named it, not the Brits that are still here. All love, guys, all love. At the end of the day, first and foremost, I'm a Stomarian. It's jumping around a little bit. Hang on. Benevolent Autocrat says, I'm going to see New Esperance in Aigues-Mortes in MicroCon 2027. Yeah, it's going to be exciting, and it does mean that 2 Stomarian citizens will be attending both MicroCons 2027, which I keep thinking is quite far away, but in reality, it's not really. It's only a little over a year now. But we have Lord Christensen from Stomaria representing Stomaria and the Empire as a whole in MicroCon 2027 in the United States, and then we have King Charlie of New Esperance, who is predominantly representing New Esperance itself, but is nevertheless still a citizen of Stomaria, and obviously New Esperance is a member state of the Empire, so on some level we are going to be present and representative, in some capacity at least, by New Esperance's presence at Aigues-Mortes. So yeah, no, it's an interesting development. And this is the thing, is that a lot of people associate with Stomaria with a video rejecting an invitation to attend MicroCon 2023. But I think we've been invited now to virtually, I'm going to say, I think maybe MicroCon 2025, we didn't get an invitation to, I don't think. But every other Micronation, I believe, since our foundation, we have been invited to. And so it's not apparently our position or mantra or opinions, or certainly my mantra and opinions, have not dissuaded people from trying to get us on board, which I suppose just goes to show just how prominent Stomaria is and how prominent our voice is in terms of people's perception of us. Our public opinion seems to matter to a lot of others out there. And well, I say that, but the reality is when Randy, Sultan Randy from Slowjamastan, someone who I have my own qualms about on some level, based on the activities that Slowjamastan get up to and all the rest of it. But fundamentally, they are one of the most sophisticated micronations out there, far and away superior to Stomaria and many others in a lot of what they do in terms of the amount of land they have, how far it's developed, how many people are behind it, and all the rest of it. I wish they were a little bit more, I'm trying to think of the word, more akin to a nation building project rather than kind of either for entertainment value or for whatever else. But at the end of the day, it works for them. I quite like Randy. I think he's, based on what I know about him, what I've read about him, what I've seen of him, he seems like a very affable stand-up chap, and someone I would like to meet one day. In fact, we had an email conversation, me and Randy, when we got invited to attend MicroCon 2027, and it's a possibility. Perhaps not this year, perhaps not next year, but it's a possibility that Sultan from Slowjamastan will be visiting Stomaria at Southwood at some point in the future. So, that was something that Randy expressed interest in doing, and I said something along the lines of, "Our gates are always open," but that's mainly because of a dodgy hinge on one of them. So, yeah, so we might have Slowjamastan on Stomarian lands at some point, which would be an interesting development, to say the least. Sav says, always respect the OGs, absolutely. Astua says, also my tomato plants have come out already, they're growing very well. Well, that's good. You did mention, I think it was the last stream, or maybe the stream before, that you said you were growing some tomatoes, among other things. So I'm glad to see that that's all come about. Because, again, it's just these small wins. I mean, just out here on our balcony, we have various things growing, like lavenders and herbs and things like that. And, it's not something I publish or talk about, like, for Stomaria, because it's not really Stomarian, it's just our own personal thing. But you're just even taking these small incremental steps, just providing a little bit more for yourself. I think that's what's missing in this world. We just need to do more for ourselves. It's like every small act of that nature is like a small act of rebellion, and I wish more people would sort of take that to heart a bit more and really run with it further. And what you're doing, Stuart, is a massive step in that direction. I mean, it seems small in the great scheme of things, but you're doing more than most when it comes to this kind of experience, the micronational or nation building experience. You are doing far more than most, even just by doing what you're doing, even just by growing some tomatoes. Sav says, Hampshire from Hertfordshire. Oh, you're Hertfordshire, are you? Okay. Not a million miles away then. You should pop down for a cup of tea. Not that I drink tea. A load of retracted messages. Free Text says, my question is, how do you get people to be proud and loyal to your state, to your own state you made? How did you get so many people to be loyal and support it? That itself is something amazing I want to replicate. Well, I mean, the reality is we have a lot of interest in Stomaria, evidently. I mean, well, I say evidently. We have 5,700 and whatever subscribers at the moment. It's a decent number. In terms of that being translated into like a core of patriotic Stomarians, we're meant, realistically, I can probably name somewhere between 1 and 2 dozen people, which I can comfortably and reliably say they are a Stomarian patriot. They are someone that's invested in Stomaria, who care about Stomaria, who have actively supported Stomaria in some way. So we're not, don't let the social media figures fool you, in the sense that just because you have 100, 1,000, or 10,000, subscribers or followers or whatever else, doesn't mean that it will translate into that kind of support in the real world. So make sure you don't get yourself sort of muddled or build up expectations on that front. Just because you have 100 followers, 1,000 followers, whatever else, doesn't mean it's going to be that many people that are actually going to get behind you. But in terms of how you go about doing that, certainly from our experience, is just to keep showing people what you are doing. Because you get no end of entities out there saying, we are going to do this, and we are going to do that, and this is our plan, and this is our aspiration. And that's good. It's good to have those aspirations. It's good to be able to put yourself out there and say, this is where we are, this is what we're going to do. But it is a lot better and a lot more engaging for people if you can actually show people what you are doing. I've talked for years during Stomaria's first 2 or 3 years of existence about what we wanted to do when we acquired the land, when we acquired the territory. And it took us 3 years to do it, more than 3 years to do it, to get southward in the end. And since then, we have been able to show people what we are doing, what we are developing. And before that, obviously, we could buy the merchandise, we could acquire the silver, we could go out and meet other leaders of other nations and other communities, and we could have the photo ops, we could have the trade agreements and things like that. So in that sense, we were still showing people what we were doing. But I think what people really want to see is like a meaningful progress. They want to know that what they're getting behind actually has some legs, that is actually going to push forward with something. And you've got to start somewhere. We've all got to start somewhere. Stomaria started as a flag in the corner of my living room with me and Samantha as the sole citizens of Stomaria for the first year of our existence. And that was Stomaria. That was all it was. We had, something like low double digits in terms of Facebook followers. We had no YouTube channel at all for the first year. I think it was in May, I want to say sometime in May 2020, 2020 that we set up the YouTube channel. And even then it was just to have an anthem and a couple of videos. It was nothing major for the first year of even that existence. So, as I say, to build up a following, you need to give people a reason to follow you, rather than just saying, you need to be patriotic, or you should be patriotic, or these are the values we stand for, therefore you need to get behind us. People want to see what you are doing. People want to know that what they throw their weight behind is actually going to deliver on the goods in as much as it can. So I suppose my advice would be to put yourself out there and actually, highlight the progress that you are making. And hopefully, in the fullness of time, the supporters will come. Veradale is in New York City, so I am a city kid. Yeah, See, I'm a country bumpkin, born and bred. This is the thing. I've I loathe, like, when it comes to like Birmingham or Liverpool or Manchester or London in particular, I just loathe being there. I really do. I hate the impersonal interaction with the thousands of people that you'll walk past in the streets. I hate the lack of any kind of semblance of community spirit, or especially in London, like almost like a common culture almost. It's almost like everyone's doing their own thing, and everyone's so divided despite being in the same space. And it's just like, I don't know. There's just something very unnatural about big cities, which I can't quite put my finger on, but it makes me feel an unease, which I dislike. I would like Stomaria predominantly to be more rural and suburban based, if possible. Um, Obviously, it's not for everyone, um, but certainly from my perspective, kind of having that kind of link back to the natural world and having a sense of real community with genuine neighbours that you actually care about, I think that's a preferable life, certainly from my perspective. Uh, Quick conversation in the chat. S2O says, imagine Slowjamastan joining the Empire. Yeah, I would imagine that's not on the cards. That would not go down well with their supporters. I think I don't think there's any real risk of Slowjamastan joining the Empire. It would be entertaining, no doubt, and we would have to drop a few of our criteria to actually allow it to happen. I would imagine, but yeah, it would be a catastrophe from a PR perspective in Slowjamastan's case. They built themselves up as a very reputable, popular micronation within the micronational community, and the very idea of associating with Stomaria. I can only imagine what the likes of Carolyn from Ladonia or Travis from Westarctica or George from Atlantium or what was his name, Eric from the Aerican Empire, I think it's called, or whoever else, all the usual big name brands of the micronational community. I can only imagine what they would say if Slowjamastan became a member state of the Empire, or an ally of the Empire, or a friend of the Empire, or something to that effect. It would be something. Sav says, Slowjamastan to the mighty Stomaria would be one of the greatest transfer deals. Yeah, Slowjamastan to the mighty Stomaria would be one of the greatest transfer deals in the history of transfer deals. It would be up there. It would be quite a feat. But I think Slowjamastan is quite happy where they are. Estua says you may have responded to this already, but why have there not been any new videos this week? Just time is the bottom line. I did say in a previous live that I did want to spend more time doing live streams, because during live streams we can generate, we can have the engagement, which is I do enjoy. I enjoy the back and forth. I enjoy the conversation, but also through things like the super chats that we've had in the past are a great way to fund Stomaria. Because you can generate more revenue for Stomaria through live streams than through a long form video. Like a long form video for us, I mean, initially you'll get like maybe £2 or £3, give or take, on the long form video for like, I don't know, somewhere between 300 and 500 views. Give it around that figure, depends on how many watch hours that racks up, depending on how long the video is. And then over the course of the sort of following years, it will trickle in a couple of pence a day. So it'll be like a tenner over the course of, I don't know, a couple of years maybe. So there's like a kind of passive income aspect to that as well. But when it comes to creating these long form videos, it takes longer for me to make like a 6 or 7 minute long form video than it does to doing a 3 or 4 hour live stream. Because with the long form videos, I need to think of a topic, think of something I want to discuss, because I don't like making videos that I don't want to talk about it. But the issue is I need to think of a topic that I want to discuss. Think of a topic that I haven't discussed in as much detail as I've discussed in the past, because I can't. There's only so many times I can talk about the same kind of issue, and then I need to write a script for that, and then I need to find the time to actually sit down, film it, which can take, for again, a 6 to 7 minute video can potentially take an hour or more to actually film, because despite the fact that, you know, when you see the final edit, it's going to be a case of you know, just seeing me jumping in and out and in and out. It's because it's been edited heavily, in that I will, you know, take say a sentence or a couple of sentences, then I'll look at the script, say it again, and then if it's not quite right, I'll delete it, go back, say it again, and it's very, very scripted, very, very heavily orchestrated, far more than it was in the past, and it does give it a bit more of a professional feel, but it does take a long time to do. And then after I filmed it, I've then got to upload it onto some software where I can chop it all up. I can sort of bring it all together. I can insert the videos. I can insert the photos and whatever else. I have to adjust the level of the volume. I have to, you know, adjust the music and all the rest of it. So it can take half a day to do a proper long form video. I can knock them out quite quickly if I really go for it, but it's quicker to do a live stream for me, because I can literally, as soon as this live stream's over, I'll literally close it and it'll just upload onto YouTube. I don't have to do anything. So this is why I prefer the more casual sort of side of things. Oh, sorry. Free Texas says, "You said it. You said it. 676767." You see, this is one of those things that kids say. I still don't know the origins of that. Thank you very much for the contribution. Again, I mentioned it in passing. You didn't need to contribute. This live stream isn't really about the super chats at the moment. I thought I'd sort of rein it back a little bit, because I don't want it to be. It's as I say, that $2 donation that you've just made is probably more than I would get in a long form video. So already that's sort of surpassed that, which is fantastic, and I'm very appreciative of that. But what was I going to say? Lost my train of thought now. Never mind. So anyway, the long form videos, as I say, take a long time to make, but we do have, in the next 2 weeks, I think 5 that I need to make. So I've got Princess Eleanor's birthday coming up. So on her birthday, we typically do like a collage or whatever else, however you define it, of her progress over the last year or so. We've just taken a few snippets of the like family videos and whatever else, and we've done that since she was born, which is it's quite interesting to see, because when I stitch them all together and see where she started and how far she's grown and how far she's come along, it is really good. It's something I like to do. But hers, so that's a video I need to make. I need to do Stomaria's anniversary video, which will be on the 16th of June. And then before that, I need to. I've already made it, but I need to publish it. The new alliance video, because we have a new ally. Had an Imperial Court meeting yesterday, and we have approved the application for a new nation building project to become formally affiliated, formally aligned with Stomaria and the Empire. So that video needs to be released. I'm probably going to have to make another video about the Imperial Summit, so we'll have to see how that one goes. And then the other video, which, have I already made it? I think I've filmed it, but I've not edited it yet. But it's a video about the Friends of the Empire, and the recent purge that we have undertaken in May. So I've got to release that one as well. So we have about 4 or 5 long form videos over the next couple of weeks. And then, yeah, as I say, live streams are probably going to take more precedence going forward, just because of a time. And again, it's a question of time. It's a question of more reward, and something that's just a bit more casual, a bit more enjoyable. Also a lot more risky, as it turns out, because I could say or do things that was just, it's going to be out there forever. Whereas I have the opportunity during the editing process with the long film. Yeah, purge. Yeah, we'll discuss the purge later. I'll get to you in a minute. Yeah. Anyway, all by the by. Long form videos are coming, so fear not. Probably 2 in the next week, if I had to guess. Timothy says, my Micronation is in Kentucky, USA. I hardly have anyone in my government, no citizens, and I write my documents on pieces of printed paper. How do I get better? Well, it depends what you want to do, I suppose. I mean, first and foremost, when it comes to building a micronation or a nation building project, however you define it, the first thing you want to work out is what exactly do you want to do? Is it an actual community that you want to establish? Is it an actual nation that you want to establish? Is it just a hobby for you, or is it kind of something that you're going to dedicate significantly more time and financial resources into? Because that's an important distinction to make. There's a lot of entities that define themselves as nation building projects or micronations. A lot of them will not invest anything in terms of the necessary time or resources necessary to develop their nation. And then they'll quickly lose interest and it'll peter out and die a death within a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple of months, but rarely longer than that. But if you're looking to do something long term, then ultimately there's no rush. Just take things slowly. If it's just you and a few close associates, or even if it's just you by yourself, you can still make waves. You can still push things forward. You just need to work out what it is you're doing, what it is you stand for, and then start talking about it. Start promoting yourself in the public space as an alternative to X, Y, and Z. And that's what Stomaria did. As I said earlier in the stream, it was just me and Samantha for the first year of our existence. It was just a flag in the corner of the room. I didn't post any videos or anything, but I talked about what Stomaria stood for. I talked about our aspirations. I talked about what we wanted to achieve and how we wanted to achieve it. And over time, we started to build up more and more of a following until eventually it kind of just exploded in terms of its popularity and notoriety. And all of that, all the things that come along with it. So it's just about knowing where you're going and then talk about where you're going and then showing people that the journey is not being wasted and that if they get involved, there is something to actually work towards rather than just a fantasy or a fiction. People want to see something real. So just make sure you show them something real. Oh, sorry, I got distracted by lots of little hearts and all little whatever's, little 100 signs. Give myself some hearts. Oh, damn it. Wrong button. There we go. This is like Stomarian propaganda. Oh, look at all the people that love me. Oh, so much love. You see, I'm not doing that now. My hands are up. People are still doing it. See? That's not me. Free Texas says, so too long didn't read. Is people, hang on. People want to help or even donate, but you got to show the works of the nation first. I'm going to try to sort of decipher that in the way I think you're trying to say it. So, yeah, so in order to get people to actually contribute, not just financially, but just contribute their time, their effort, their energy, their resources, and as much as their skill sets or anything to that effect, you've got to be able to show people what you are doing. I believe that is the case anyway. Like, if you take Slowjamastan as a good example, Slowjamastan would not be nearly as popular if they did not have the space that they do, and they would not be as popular if they don't engage in as many of the activities that they do. They're always traveling around, they're meeting people, they're always engaging in various projects on their lands and all the rest of it. And again, it's why they stick out far more than, say, I don't know, like Westarctica or Ladonia or whatever else, because they are actively pushing forward. They are actually developing their lands. They actually they have a drive to them, which I can really respect. Whereas a lot of the sort of old guard micronations are just kind of there. They show up to a few events once or twice a year or whatever else, but by and large, it's just almost a facade. They don't do anything in a practical sense, in a real world capacity. Like, when's the last time you saw Westarctica, doing anything, in Antarctica? For obvious reasons, that it's very rare that would ever happen. I think they do like some sort of scholarship thing or whatever, but why would people? It's just an environmentalist campaign, and if people aren't going to get involved because of the environmentalist side of things, there's not a lot of reason to get involved at all. Um, as an example, or if you take Ladonia, it's the same sort of thing, I suppose. They're not. If they are doing something, or if they're working behind the scenes, I'm certainly not seeing, or I haven't seen it for some years. But they're just there. They just exist. They have their citizens. They have their claimed territory, uh, and they're just there. And then they show up to events and they talk about things, or they engage in various little sort of side quests. But in terms of like developing and expanding an actual nation, I just don't see it. And it's not to say that these entities are small as such, um, but they just, from my perspective, they just lack drive. They lack ambition. And I think having that is a good way to motivate people to get involved in your own project. New Esperance says, you're right. It's always inspiring when you speak, just like when we're discussing things. You truly have a profile, have the profile of hesitate. I appreciate that, Charlie. Thank you. It's I have my moments. I get into the zone of things, and yeah, I just I let it go. I sort of let it all come out. Sarah says it's Stomaria capitalists. We are advocates of sort of a free capitalist society. Yes, absolutely. Stuart says, personally, I think residential buildings have a great impact on it. They make people live in small, crowded spaces, making it difficult to start a family and have relations with other people. Yes and no. I mean, I'm not against residential spaces or residential buildings at all. I think um, private property of that nature is obviously something that we're big advocates for. But it's just the sheer volume of it. And I appreciate, people have got to live somewhere, and if they're not all crammed into London, then they're being dispersed across the entirety of the countryside at large, which has its own issues associated with that. So it is a bit of a conundrum in that sense. But for me personally, I just like to be around nature. I like to be around open spaces. I like to be around forests. I don't like being entombed in concrete all the time, with the occasional tree down a particular, you know, avenue every so often. It's just, I need to see my greenery. It's the bottom line. I got the super chat from, so I've just caught up here. So I got the super chat from New Texas again. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. So like Sav says, some micronationalists tend to be libertarian. Have you ever been particularly interested in libertarian theory, or however it is mostly been part and parcel of nation building? Yes, I mean, during my sort of early 20s, I would have considered myself more. I mean, I've always been quite centrist, but I would have definitely been more positioned on the left. I was more in favor of big government. I was in favor of government intervention, nationalization, that sort of thing. Um, in addition to other policies which would be considered more right wing, which is why I kind of have that kind of centrist kind of adherence, really. But over time, certainly since my mid-20s, I'd say, I have become a lot more libertarian, a lot more socially conservative, a lot more hesitant to give government any authority that I don't think they need. I think empowering people as individuals is far more beneficial, not only to the individual, but to society as a whole. I think giving the government too much power is dangerous because ultimately you might support the government in what it's doing now, but if you give a government power and that government changes, as so often does, and it maintains that power, that's when bad things can happen. Just because the government's fighting your corner today doesn't mean it's going to be fighting your corner tomorrow. So you've always got to be prepared for the shoe to be on the other foot, as it were. And so it's far better, in my opinion, for the government to be strong but also small. And that is to say, to have as little impact on your day-to-day life as is humanly possible. To keep tax burden down as low as possible. To maintain, some kind of defense force, a judiciary, a police force, to maintain civility, order, protecting the lives and the property of its citizens. But otherwise, by and large, just let people get on with their own lives without regulating and legislating every aspect of people's existence. And yeah, so that's where my kind of libertarian streak comes into it. And as I say, I'm a bit more. I've always been quite socially conservative, but sort of more so as I get older, especially when it comes to so some of the like culture war issues of the day. I always tend to find myself being quite squarely on the right side, if you like. I mean, I don't tend to like the sort of left-right spectrum jargon myself, but when it comes to protecting women's rights and the rights of minors, I'll always side on that. When it comes to promoting like in the United Kingdom, for instance, I'm not a religious person at all, but when it comes to like the cultural Christianity side of things, I'm definitely in favor of that. I'm all about the Christmas and Easter and all that jazz. So I'd be a bit of a hypocrite if I said it didn't play a part in my life in some respects. Not that I'm a practicing Christian or anything like that. Quite famously and infamously agnostic, but I'd be lying if the culture of the lands around me weren't worth preserving and protecting, because it is a part of us. I mean, and this is the thing that people also don't seem to understand about me personally, is that I'm obviously the Emperor of Stomaria. I am a Stomarian. I am the Stomarian. I am the first Stomarian. But I'm also English. I'm also British. I'm also European. I am also human. I mean, people have many identities within them. I mean, someone that's in the United States, I think I gave this example last time, if they live in Florida, they might be a citizen of the United States, but they'll also be a Floridian. If someone lives in France, they'll be French, and perhaps maybe a region in France which they identify with the community and culture there, but they're also European beyond that. And so, people have many kind of identities, and being Stomarian is definitely one of them. But when it comes to the surrounding culture around me, it is, in my mind, something worth preserving, by and large. So again, I would consider myself to be quite socially conservative and quite libertarian. And I think a lot of what Stomaria stands for and what Stomaria promotes, it should feed into that narrative anyway. I think a lot of people can see that. A lot of hearts going at the moment. Thank you to whoever who clearly appreciates that sentiment. Astua says, I think humans are naturally meant to live in rural areas with big families, raising children, having farms, and taking care of animals. I personally hate cities. Yeah, I can't disagree with that sentiment. I'm very much in that camp. So, yeah, I'm very much glad you sympathise with that position. Sarah says, you should do a military parade for her birthday. I'm not sure if you'd understand or appreciate that. I think a 6-year-old birthday party probably doesn't entail military parades. Not in most situations, anyway. In fact, there's one of the reasons I stopped wearing the uniform of the Imperial Guard. I mean, if you look, it's not even that old, really. Probably going back, I want to say 2 or 3 years. If you go back and look at some of our earlier content, certainly in the How to Start a Nation series, you'll see quite a lot of it, certainly in the first load of videos. I'll be wearing the grey uniform of the Imperial Guard. And one of the reasons I stopped wearing that is because I didn't want to keep giving people the impression that Stomaria was somehow quite militaristic, which is why I sort of just wear the dress down suit as I do now, and what I'm quite well renowned for, I think, at this point. Oh, excuse me. But yeah. Military parades aren't really going to be a thing for us, I would suspect, for a while yet. Right, let's have a look. Stuart says, cities also makes... Oh, sorry, jumped. Cities also makes it impossible for you to be self-sufficient, and they make you effectively dependent on the state, and that's very dangerous and scary. Again, don't disagree. When it comes to providing more for yourself, it is far more difficult to do it if you are in a city, and that's just the reality. There's only so many animals you're going to be able to raise in central London. There's only so many fruits and vegetables and herbs that you're going to be able to grow in central London. There's only going to be so many, solar panels or water collection facilities that you can establish or whatever else. The list goes on and on. So it is more difficult to live a self-sufficient lifestyle in a city. So again, just another reason to keep my distance. But you know, some people love cities. So you know, to each their own and all that. Free Texas says, my Micronation is like a baby. It's still growing, but when it grows, we can be allies. Well, I mean, you've more than justified the the attempt at an application. You'd have to provide some details about yourself, obviously. If you go onto our website and you look on the Foreign Affairs page of Stomaria's website, it'll give you the criteria that we look for. But this is not the first time that you've contributed financially to Stomaria, and that's a big boon in your favour. No question about it. Very appreciative of everyone that contributes to Stomaria through these means, because at the end of the day, you don't have to. There's no reason for you to do so. At the end of the day, you know, I'll happily shout you out. I'll happily thank you in the public space. But at the end of the day, that's probably not worth much in the grand scheme of things. But this isn't the first time you've contributed to us, and even if it is the last time you do contribute to us, we are extremely appreciative of it. There's no two ways about it. So happy to have that conversation. If you do want to make an alliance application, you've certainly earned that much. So please feel free to send us an email as and when, if that's a path you want to go down. Jude says, purge. Yes, we had a purge of the Friends of the Empire in May. Veridale's probably aware of this because he is actually a friend of the Empire who was not purged, but a lot of people were, and I made a video about that, and I quite like the thumbnail that I made for it, so keep an eye out for that one. That will probably be on, oh, that might be the week after next. How are we going to do this? 11th. Keep an eye out for it, but it's coming in the next couple of weeks. Asua says, I agree with you. I like lives more. It's way more personal and we can interact with the moments. Also, more easier to you, gain even more money. So it's. Oh, sorry, yeah. Sorry, I have to remind myself of the conversation that I had. Yeah, so when it comes to sort of the live streams versus the long form videos, I don't mind doing long form videos as such. But I'm just saying it takes me as long to do it, if not longer, than it does to do a 3 or 4 hour live stream. And obviously, I get to interact with more people. I just find it a bit more enjoyable to come on, sit down with you guys, have a conversation. You know, occasionally generate some revenue for the Empire. Hopefully, have a conversation about a particular topic. I mean, the actual head, the topic of this the entire video was, does your Micronation suck? And I've spent exceptionally little time actually discussing that. I think we had a brief look at Lashburnia and we had a brief look at Veridale. But yeah, I was a bit hesitant to do something like that because I thought it might be a bit more challenging. I think probably I'll go back to like objectives, like quests. So, you know, let's get 5 citizens, or let's raise, you know, £10, or let's get, you know, 20 more followers on our Discord server or something, you know, something along those lines. Just something to work towards. Like, as a team, we'll do it together, rather than like, you know, judging Micronations or nation building projects or whatever else. I just thought it might be an interesting thing to talk about, but at the end of the day, I don't have enough time. This is the problem I have. I thought was going to be the issue. Even if people say, can you know, judge my Micronation or whatever else, I think it'll take too long for me to delve into it and then give a firm answer to it. So I think it was probably a mistake to go down this route. A lesson learned for next time. Charlie says it's fun to spam click on the hearts. I don't think the hearts do anything. I think it sends a signal to the people in the chat that whatever I'm saying is resonating with people in the chat. But in terms of like increasing engagement or raising awareness of Stomaria, like the live stream or whatever else, I'm not sure it actually does anything. But very much appreciate the hearts all the same. I do. Pretexter says, so my father really hates the concept of Micronations. He says it's basically just LARPing. I explained to him, but he just sounds like a community or township, and he's asking why nation. I guess my question is, how do I explain the purpose of Micronation? He brought up the good point that pretty much it's just a community with a flag at that point. Well, it depends, because people establish micronations and nation builder projects for very different reasons. The reason that we exist is very simple. I mean, we engage in activities in which are beneficial to us as individuals. So when it comes to the foundation of Stomaria, as an example, because obviously it's going to be the best example I can give, I have learned so much about ancient history, about economics, about monetary systems, about governmental systems. I have developed skills in terms of establishing and putting together solar panels, in terms of growing food, in terms of how long to season pine logs for, which soft or hard woods are the best for burning, in terms of the heat they provide, in terms of how long they burn for, things I never really considered, in terms of like soil rejuvenation, pH levels of soil, the amount of sunlight that certain plants need to grow and thrive, the process of making passports, vexillology, how to create flags. And it's just so much depth behind it, so much knowledge you can acquire, so many skills you can develop with the nation building experience, that you wouldn't necessarily get unless you were particularly interested in those things individually by themselves. It is a bit like establishing a homestead or a community or a commune, but the reason it becomes a nation, the reason it becomes something separate, is because ultimately of the culture that you want to establish and promote, if it is something that is distinct or unique in some way. Because ultimately, the values that you stand for, the customs and the traditions that will develop over time, this is what makes a community a community. This is what distinguishes people as much as anything else. Now, if you have a common language, you have a common set of values, you have common aspirations, common belief system, and those people have been brought together under a system of government which can push things forward. It's as much a nation as any other nation out there, and certainly over time that will become even more closer to reality. This is the thing I've always said, is that ultimately the only difference between Stomaria as things stand and any other nation in the world today is just a question of time. Because these, a lot of these nations, a lot of these cultures, a lot of these communities have been around for hundreds or thousands of years. And ultimately, if we are successful with Stomaria in hundreds or thousands of years, we will be indistinguishable in many ways from the nations around the world. And that's ultimately what I strive for. I strive to build something new based on values which I think are important. And this is my way of doing it. And at the end of the day, what else are you going to do with your life? Are you going to be sat there playing on your Xbox or PlayStation forevermore? Are you just going to be going to work and then coming home and then watching the football or the cricket or in America, soccer or basketball or something like that, and then next day go and talk about the sports that you just saw that evening? Or are you going to build model ships, or are you going to collect stamps, or what are you going to do that's going to be more productive or more beneficial than trying to build something like this and developing all the skills and interests in order to provide more for yourself that you will naturally acquire along the way? I mean, this is the thing that sort of irks me sometimes when people say you're wasting your time or you're wasting your energy, or why even bother? And I always point to the obvious question, which is, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing that's so special? What are you trying to accomplish? What's going to be your mark on history? That's going to be the overriding question, from my own perspective. I mean, obviously, to each their own. It's not for everyone, but for others to suggest that what we are doing is, just live action role play, or it is a waste of time, or it is pointless, or whatever else, it just doesn't ring true for me. Because what we are doing is just far more significant than what most people will ever do with their lives, and that's just a simple truth. So hopefully that answers your question anyway. Right, let's have a look. Sav says, found your thoughts on social conservatism and cultural Christianity quite insightful. Nation is great, but it's all of the smaller communities which rank prior in one's order of love. Sorry, I'm just going to read that again. Nation is great, but it's all of the smaller communities which rank prior in one's order of love. I'm not sure what that means, but I appreciate the comment. Thank you. I'm glad you found it to be insightful. Veridale says, yeah, I remember getting an email, stay in front of the Empire, and I remember wondering how many people would stay. Well, you will find out in the video. That'll be a surprise for you. New Esperance says, I love the nation of Veridale. Yeah, they got their head screwed on. I like Veridale as well. They are former allies of the kingdom, and the Marshal, head of state, is a very good friend and was always supportive of our progress. Yeah, no, I do recall that being the case. You know, Veridale is still a friend of the Empire. They're still associated with the Empire in some way. And hopefully in the fullness of time, that will become a more formal thing. So we shall see. We shall see. New Esperance says, and who I think was even more excited than we were when we joined the Empire. Veridale says, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think they did express a great deal of enthusiasm for New Esperance's inclusion into the Empire as a member state. And yeah, for good reason. We are very, very lucky to have you. Stuart says, do you think because of globalization, the sense of community with the same values and aspirations is disappearing, especially in cities and places where a lot of people live? I do. I think that any semblance of like true community dies as you sort of branch out larger. I mean, people talk about things like, you know, the global community. There's no such thing as the global community. Community is the people around you. And if there's too many people around you, suddenly it becomes less of a community and just more of a group of people who you don't necessarily know, and who you're not familiar with, and potentially view as a threat in some respects. And it's a strange thing to say, but I suppose at the end of the day, are you more comfortable, or would you be more comfortable living around, you know, a few dozen people who you know by name, who are the, extended family or friends or acquaintances, and whose kids go to the same school as your kids, and you have a good relationship with them? Or, do you find that more threatening, or would you find it more threatening if you were, you know, walking down the street of some large city or going on the tube or something with 1,500 other people crammed in there like sardines, people you didn't know or didn't associate with, or couldn't understand the language they were speaking, or the customs or traditions that they adhere to themselves? It's the breakdown of a sense of community, which I think is quite a big risk. And so we've always got to try to maintain that as much as we can. And Stomaria, I mean, obviously is a global empire in that sense, but we are trying to bring people together based on these common values, based on these common ideals, and trying to build up personal relationships with all of the citizens and supporters of the empire is something I'm always keen to do. I always try my best to reach out to citizens when I have time, and to respond to citizens' queries and inquiries and the rest of it when I have time, and trying to build a relationship with each of them as individuals rather than just as a collective whole. So that is something I'm very keen to do. I don't always do as successful a job as I want, but it is something I'm very keen on doing, and I think it is important for people in general to have that sense of belonging, that sense of security and familiarity, and that's something that we are trying to build with Stomaria, despite the fact that we are doing so on ultimately a global level. Why do you stay in the UK? I presume that's a question for me. the United Kingdom is where I was born. It's where I live. It's where I work. It's where all of my family are. Um, it's where our lands are, uh, and on the list goes on and on and on. I mean, the idea of moving from uh, the United Kingdom or England specifically, it is something that's you know come up from time to time. But ultimately, where would we go, and why would we? Why would there be better than where we are now? Would we have the same issues, or would we have different problems? Um, and ultimately, when it comes to the question of family, that's really the sticking point. Because I come from a very close knit family, as does Samantha. So the idea of uprooting our lives and moving somewhere where they would not be able to access us, or we would be able to see them, um, is largely unthinkable, I would say. So, as with a lot of things in my life, I try to put my family before all else, and that is no exception, really. Sav says, I was unclear earlier. Order of love generally refers to a person's prioritizing of their inner community. Family tends to come first, then the local community, then the nation, then humanity as a whole. Very much agreed. Very much agreed. I mean, our mantra, our motto is family, freedom, and fatherland. And it's in that order for a very specific reason. And that's because in our minds, family comes first every time, followed by freedom, your rights, your liberty, your ability to provide for yourself and your family. And fatherland is in third place because ultimately what you want to do is you want to have a fatherland, a community, a sense of identity, something that will protect you and your freedoms and your family, to be a part of a community, a collective whole in that sense, while also maintaining your own individual rights, your own individual liberty. And that's why we have it in that order. Um, so, yeah, I very much agree with that sentiment. Absolutely. Sarah says, just one. I don't know if that's supposed to say acre. Just 1 acre of land there costs more than a car. Yeah, hands down. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, if you buy if you buy like 1,000 acres of land here, per acre, maybe it is going to be like 10 grand or something, or 8 grand. But then you have to spend like, £800,000 to actually to buy it at that kind of rate. If you're looking just to buy an acre, you could be talking 60, 70, 70, maybe £80,000. I think we did a video where some of the samples that we did was like a fraction of an acre, and it was like over 500,000. No, that's not right. It was a little. I think it was around half an acre to an acre, but it was somewhere between like 80 and £100,000, around that kind of figure. Don't quote me on that. I'm sure in a video. I'm sure we released something last year. I think it was, which highlighted this issue. Stuart says about language. Do you think having multiple language divides people into communities not wanting to integrate with others? Like, for example, with immigrants who make their own communities based on customs, values, and languages. Well, this is the thing. I personally believe that if you are moving to a different area, a different location, a different country, and you intend to stay there long term, that you shouldn't bring your customs and your culture with you to the extent that you are segregating yourself from the community that you found yourself in. I hate seeing white communities and black communities and Polish communities and Jewish communities and English communities and everything all in the same kind of zone. I think that is divisive. I think that is a problem. I think integration into the culture in which you find yourself is very, very important. Now, the Empire of Stomaria has been structured because we are a federal empire. We do have different cultures and identities within Stomaria. That is undeniable. New Esperance is not the same as Wayward. Wayward is not the same as Stomaria, and we will be different from every other member state that comes in the future. However, we are still, and despite that we belong to the same kind of state, the same entity, and we are our own individual nations, I wouldn't dream of kind of imposing my culture or my, attire, customs, or traditions that I have in Stomaria onto New Esperance or onto Wayward. When it comes to the domestic affairs of Wayward or New Esperance and Stomaria, that's very much their own business, and those that join them knowing what they are. Um, and you know, as I say, we do form a part of a collective whole. We do form a single state as the Empire of Stomaria, but at the end of the day, we are different nations. We are a family of nations, but within each of those nations, they have their own cultures, they have their own identities, and I think protecting and preserving those is very important. And I think that goes on a larger macronational scale as well, which is why, you know, when I see people like, you know, in the United Kingdom, if people are like moving en masse to places in Spain, for instance, which is quite a popular destination for people to set up shop, to move there, to live there, to retire there, or whatever else. You know, I have gripes about English people in like Spain or in other parts of the world not integrating fully into Spanish society in the same way that we would expect other people moving into the United Kingdom or to Britain to integrate into our own culture. Uh, so it's a it is a two-way street, and you just have to respect where you find yourself if you're not already a part of that community. I would say. Um, so yeah, I do think dividing people through different languages, different cultures, different traditions, different values in the same geographical location can be problematic if it's not handled correctly. And in a lot of cases, it is one of the reasons that a lot of communities these days are so divided, because they've all been broken up into tiny little sects that are still within the same zone, the same community theoretically. And I do think that's where a lot of the problems come from. Tronistia, hello there. Since the day you created Stomaria, what do you think was the biggest success you've had so far? The biggest success, I'm not sure I can really pin it down to a single like event or a single activity necessarily. I mean, I suppose if you had to, then you could probably point to acquiring the land. But purchasing the land was less effort and less work than spending the years afterwards actually developing the land. Or the affiliations that we've built up, the empire that's been established. It's an interesting question, and I don't think I can accurately answer it by saying it's one thing that I'm proud of. I think going from where we were to where we are now, that is to say, going from, you know, me, Samantha, flag in a corner of the living room, 14 followers on a Facebook page, to where we are now, I think to a lot of people does serve as some kind of inspiration. I think a lot of people do take a lot of value from Stomaria. I think a lot of people are inspired by Stomaria, our journey. It's not been a flawless journey. I've made plenty of mistakes along the way. I'll make plenty more along the way. There will be more setbacks along the way. There will be more hardship along the way. Don't doubt that for a minute. I promise you, it's not going to be a smooth ride in the years ahead. But ultimately, and this is true of much of what I've done in my life, is just I will never surrender. I will never walk away until I want to walk away. And with Stomaria, this is a generational nation building project, and regardless of what happens, regardless of how hard the road might be, I will keep pushing forward until I have something of note to pass on to the next generation, and hopefully they will be able to build upon that something even stronger, even grander, and far closer to reality, the vision that I had when I first started Stomaria. Where are we? Sav says, you're bang on about the local integration, plurality and culture in a nation is all well, but if villages, towns and cities split into cultural sects, cohesion may break down and regrettably bring enmity. Yeah, it does. And the thing is, it just doesn't serve anyone's goals, at least unless they're particularly deliberately trying to stoke those kind of tensions for their own personal or political gain. But from my perspective, in order to have a harmonious society, you have to be surrounded by people that share your values, that share your aspirations, that share your language, and have a stake in the community that they find themselves in, and want to participate that as an active player. And I'm not perfect. I'm not as fully integrated into my own community as much as I should be, realistically. But I'm not, you know, actively trying to destroy it by promoting alternative values within that community. I am obviously establishing Stomaria. I am establishing a community of sorts, but I am still a part of the community that I am in now, and I have no intention of taking myself away from that, in as much as I can. And yeah, as I say, it is a lot more of a prevalent issue with more conventional nations of the world, but it's an easy result. It's an easily resolvable issue as far as I'm concerned. It just has to have the political will to actually go out and say, we need to bring ourselves together a bit more here. And I think the world would be a much better place and run a lot smoother if we just had that kind of mentality. Actually having neighbours rather than people next door which you consider to be strangers. Sarah says, is there any pivot? Oh, private? Is there any private Sumerian companies so far? Not really. No, we don't have like a company as such. We do have Sumerians that have various business ventures, which we occasionally take full advantage of. I've bought various things from various stalls and things that people have made, be it jewelry or clothes or whatever else. But in terms of like a company, I mean, not really. Not in the sense that I suggest you're thinking of. Astura says, well, well, we know what the worst failure of Stomaria was, except in Brown Hell. I don't disagree. It probably was, and still is, the single biggest error I ever made as the Emperor of Stomaria. One that I still don't let myself live down and beat myself up over time and time again. And it's interesting to me to think sometimes how things might have panned out had Brenhal never been affiliated with the Empire. And I don't know if anything would really change, like from where we are now to where we were. Because ultimately, if Brenhal was never affiliated with the Empire, that's all fine and dead. That's fine. He's not interested in the equation. But I suppose the biggest issue that Branhal brought to Stomaria was that Neve ended up leaving the Empire. And even though I'm quite cordial with Neve, I haven't spoken to her for a while, but I think we're relatively cordial. I've had conversations with her since that departure back in 2022. But Molossia has been near enough defunct or inactive since like January 2023, so like literally the month after they withdrew their membership of the Empire. And so I suspect even if Branhal hadn't been affiliated with Stomaria, it remains to be seen if Molossia would still be around if it was affiliated with Stomaria proper. Maybe they would have gone defunct as a member state of the Empire. Certainly the signs would indicate that could have been the case, but we'll never know. But in terms of like a material impact, Branhal's departure didn't really have much of an impact on us. It was more just a case of a personal gripe that I had with myself because I allowed that kind of individual to affiliate with us, and that's not something I have easily lived down. Asua says, for politicians, it's better a divided society that hates the other part, so they're distracted and politicians do whatever they want. Yeah, I mean, it's not really conspiratorial in the sense that quite clearly a lot of politicians and a lot of entities do go down this route for this exact reason. but at the same time, there are groups and entities that might not have ever existed had it not been for this in the first place. And this is my one of my bigger fears, I suppose, like domestically in the United Kingdom and Britain, is that we clearly have a problem. There's clearly an issue in terms of cultural division, um, in a quite substantial, serious way in a lot of cases. And the real question is, how do you resolve that? And a lot of the uh, entities and politicians and people out there are offering solutions, but those solutions can be incredibly draconian, for lack of a better term. Um, and that in itself could cause even more problems. So it's a very difficult issue to navigate from my own perspective. You do have to not treat it with kid gloves or anything like that, but when you get to a point where society starts fracturing, where cultures start to butt up against each other, and people don't trust each other anymore, people lose faith in one another. People that should be, by all accounts, their countrymen, their friends, their neighbors. When you have that kind of divisiveness running through society, it does lead to very ugly situations, which I don't think I need to necessarily elaborate here as to what I'm talking about, but it can give rise to entities, to individuals, which on the surface level maybe have some justified complaints, but have solutions which only exacerbate tension, hatred, division, and violence. So we always have to be careful about this sort of thing, because ultimately we want to make sure that everyone wins here, or as many people as possible win. Sarah says, sounds like communism. Not sure what sounds like communism. Oh, no private companies. Well, people are free to set up their own stalls and businesses, but in terms of like some kind of like branded company, we don't have them because people haven't set them up, because we don't have a system in which we have people which own a company and employ other Stomarians to produce other goods or anything like that. We're not at that stage. That's yeah, we will be one day, I'm sure. But just not quite yet. New Esperance says, thank you for this moment. I'm going to leave now. See you soon. Thank you, New Esperance. I think I'm probably going to wrap up myself. I can feel my throat going a little bit. It's been a bit of a rough day. So I will probably, where are we now? So we've been going, so it's 11 o'clock. When did we start? 8:30? Yeah, we've been going a fair while now, so I think we'll probably wrap things up a little bit now. Yeah, if there's any final sort of questions or concerns anyone has, happy to do so. We are going to start wrapping things up in a second. One more hour. No, I can't do another hour. It was a midnight finish last time, and I've still got things to do. No children, not another hour. Stuart says, I don't know the situation in the UK, but here in Spain, when I was younger, people left the doors on the houses open without fear of being robbed. Now that's unthinkable, and shows the degradation of trust. Yes, absolutely. It's the same here. I mean, you hear stories now of back in the day, people would just go to the shops or whatever else, and leave the doors open or leave the keys in the car running while you went to go. Well, not running, but leave the keys in the car while you went to go pay for your fuel or whatever else, without any concern at all about it being stolen or whatever else, because it was just not something that happened as prevalently. But yeah, these days, you triple lock that thing. So it would be nice to get back to a sense of community. I think for the most part we've lost that, and I don't really see a path forward for getting it back, unless we start rekindling those bridges with one another. And that takes a social contract, which is very hard to establish and even harder to maintain. So we'll have to see how we go. Sev says, thank you for the stream and all the best. Bye. Yeah, hopefully we'll catch you in the next one. All right, okay, good. Well, we're going to leave it there. We're going to end on a high note, I think. We've done well. We got through the stream together. We had an interesting conversation. Didn't really cover the topic that I wanted to talk about, but that's really on me. A learning curve. And we will... I'll think of a target that we can all work towards for the next live stream. All right, good. Yep, pleasure as always to us. Glad that you could join us again. Right, I'll say good evening or good day wherever you might be, and yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. I'll make sure I get the dates right for the next live stream. Might be a couple of days before I decide when that's going to be, but we will do a live stream soon. But the next ones will probably be a long form video, so keep an eye out for those ones. Right, you have a good day, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us.